Hey there, listener. It's Quinn, obviously. I'm really excited to share two bits of news. First, we just launched private member podcast feeds for both of our shows. The Most Important Question, with just me and guests, and Not Right Now, the show I co host with Claire Zolke. The new member feeds are ad free, which is awesome if you hate ads, and they have some super fun bonus content, including weekly off-topic banter and some recommendations, and monthly Q&As that you can't get anywhere else. So, one, if you're already a member, check your email. There's instructions from us on how to add the feeds to your favorite podcast player. The link is also right there in the show notes for this promo. If you're not yet a member, here's the second piece of news. You can still, of course, get our 30-day free trial, but after Sunday, June 8th, prices go up. Instead of $2 a month or $20 a year, it'll be $3 a month or $30 a year. Because everything we make costs money to make, and we need more of your support. So head to importantnotimportant.com/upgrade to start your 30-day free trial right now and lock in the lower prices before Sunday night. And when you do, you'll get these new member feeds and everything else members can get right now. Stickers, your What Can I Do profile and personalized recommendations, access to my essays and the comment section, and so much other stuff. That's importantnotimportant.com/upgrade. The link, of course, is right in your show notes. It takes 1 minute and will automatically send you everything you need to get going. Thank you, thank you, thank you, truly, for supporting our work here and for giving a shit. Have a great rest of the day. You have kids and they're 6 months old and you're like, we're going to be the woke family. And you're like, they don't know they have hands or feet. Welcome to Not Right Now, the podcast about parenting through all of this.
We'll be talking about / crashing out over topics like
Mom, what's a coup during morning carpool?
air quality alerts. And yes, you do have to wear deodorant.
It's not an advice show.
It's you're not alone, and you're also not crazy for screaming in the shower kind of show. I'm Claire Zolke from Evil Witches.
And I'm Quinn Emmett from Important Not Important.
You can find details on anything we talk about in the show notes or at our website, notrightnow.show.
And if you like what you hear today, please share it with a parent who needs it or who might laugh and tell their kids to be quiet. And then drop us a nice little 5-star review.
And reminder, you can send questions or feedback to questions@notrightnow.show. Overcompensate, yelling at our son with giving him things. So hopefully he'll like us more in the end, but he
won't.
Yeah, but for his birthday, he wanted a sliding glove, and it's just so funny. It just looks so dumb, but he's excited.
It looks so dumb. It feels like one of those things I feel like happened while I was like, the majors, they try stuff out. They wear 67 pieces of armor now, but the ball's going like 99. It's fair when you're up to bat. Good for them. Or like how at one point the NBA tried like full on leggings to keep their muscles warm. And they finally said, we're not doing that. I feel like the sliding glove happened sometime for the youth sport, sometime in between the many years from when I stopped to now, because every kid does it. And my kids, same thing. They're like, can I get one? I'm like, mechanically you can, but out of your green light account, because like you don't even know how to slide feet first. Like, why would I buy you a glove when you're just going to smash your fucking face in sliding head first? But it also reminds me, so my kids currently swim for the same swim coach I had. It's great. I cry all the time. And he's great. I remember at one point watching when they started swimming, 4 or 5 years ago. And in breaststroke now, when you push off the wall, you can do exactly one butterfly kick, just one kick. And that was like a real no-no when we were growing up. That was like the thing you got disqualified for. And so I looked at him aghast, like on the sideline at one meet, and I was like, since when can kids do that? And he goes, 18 years. It's been 18 fucking years. And you're just like, oh, Jesus Christ. So he got a sliding glove for his birthday. We've been just on a hellacious tear, purging as much as we can from the house. And besides this, just full movement to do that, we're trying to institute even more like a one thing in the door, 7 things out the fucking door. This was a birthday, so obviously you weren't going to push a Gestapo policy like that, but is there anything like that, like to keep the house from becoming full of just constant new shit?
No, I have decided I can do one of two things. I can work my job and take care of my life and like myself to the best as I can, or I can monitor this shit like I'm running a warehouse and I'm not. But I think that if you do make an effort to keep your kids off screens, like to the extent that you do, you have to give in to a bunch of shit coming in. You seem better than this. You seem to have more control over this than I do. But I think that if it's to the benefit of playing like sports, which James does, and it is sort of like one of his ADHD superpowers where he can concentrate and do something good with it instead of just like playing whatever Roblox, that we're like, fine, take it. You're fine with it. Also, it's played against sports. So I guess in my mind, I'm like, someday if he doesn't wear it to death, like this can have a new life. So sports stuff doesn't mean as much to me. I would be more mad if they were like squishmallow stuffed animals. Like they don't ask
Girl,
for
the
that kind
number
of
of squishmallows went out the door very reluctantly this weekend. God,
Mm.
Jesus Christ. It's just like little balls of fucking cancer. Everyone's like, but
Yeah.
they're so squishy. And I'm like, they shouldn't be. They fucking
No.
shouldn't be. No, but you're right. It's, we have some friends and their kids are very busy. And sometimes I'm like, why? It's so much. It's exhausting, the amount of stuff they do. And my friend recently was like, yeah, but every single one of those things, they can't be doing screens when they're on them. So I'm fine to fucking drive them around to whatever. I was like, that makes sense. And it's so funny. I was looking on eBay for a used full-size xylophone for my oldest. And I was like, it seems ridiculous, but I'm like, it's something he's into that is not on fucking screen. So like, why not? That's his sliding glove. It's a
You know
full-size
what?
xylophone.
And I'm happy for you. That's a task then that you get to work on. Cause like, I bet that's kind of fun to tell people that you're in the market for it. Like, that's a good story.
Yeah. Like, where's the guy opening his trench coat on the street with a full-size xylophone for me?
Yeah, you should be able to hear him coming, but I guess not.
You would think so. You would think so. But it also reminds me, we also cleaned out the car, which,
Thank you for reminding me.
I mean, for them, what a catastrophe. It's like asking them to give up their friends, for murder. But every time, where's my baseball hat? I do look in the car. It's not in the car. Okay. Where's your water bottle? I don't know. Well, there's 4 in the back seat of the car. Well, those aren't mine. Well, you sit in the same seat every fucking time and they're gross and moldy. And they're like, well, just use them. I'm like, you can't. You'll get sick and then it's my problem.
Has someone done the history of the water bottle and how that got mainstreamed? Like, I do remember sports, like a Gatorade water bottle with the one really long straw. And I think it might have been even communal, might have belonged to the team, but nobody brought their own water from home ever.
Dana and I talk about this all the time. Do you remember just drinking water? No.
No, skim milk.
If I go 20 minutes without drinking from this, I'm like, well, this is it. It's cancer. I'm dying.
The car thing. Yeah, I need to take care of that. I like to keep snacks in the car so that the kids are never busy or sometimes I have something to hand people who are like panhandling and I don't have small bills, but I'll be like, here's some snacks. And I got a guy saying that he's gluten-free. I tried to give him popcorn and I could have been like, I know popcorn is gluten-free, but I was like, it's a red light turning green and I'm not going to argue with you. Sorry. But anyway.
By the way, this flows right into our charitable stuff,
Yeah, seriously. No, I was laughing because yesterday I got home from Orange Theory at 9:30 and my older one, he's 12, he'll be 13 in August, set up like what would have been like a lemonade stand, except that he set up a target range.
So when you sent the picture, I was like, oh, a lemonade stand until I looked closer.
Yeah, no, it was a shooting range. So back up even further. Like, of course, I am a long time. I've given probably at least 4 digits worth of numbers to every town. I'm sure I've like donated, like crying libtard limousine, no guns kind of idiot. Come shoot me. I deserve it. But also our neighbor is police and FBI. And I know that they have at least 4 gun safes in the house.
Minimum.
So I rely on them, honestly. The Paul, we let him shoot at a Target booth in Mexico City when we were there. Our last day, he had been feeling really sick. He wanted to, I don't know, vibes felt right. It was okay. So anyway, no gun house helped that. Like we have this dog that would chew up, I'm sure, the bullets. Anyway, Paul goes to the school rummage sale, which, he volunteered at. And the kids get first pick of the stuff, which drives me crazy. And he brought home 2, Uzi-sized Nerf guns. So already like the shipping, like traffic flow is like, I can't get in the way of it because it has nothing to do with me. He got this from a school that I chose, that I paid for him to go to. And he was volunteering at it in the service of volunteerism. So at what point do you step in there and say, put that back, go get what's the opposite of a gun? What could he pick out that he would possibly want? Like a dream catcher. So anyway, uh, and then he uses his own money to order some Amazon like bullets, and he has this thing set up. And so on the one hand, I'm torn because PS, not regarding gun safety or setting up targets or anything like that. He is firstborn. He's not very online. So I feel like very kind of naive and innocent for his age. So
That's great.
I know. And my heart is like sort of breaking at the same time. I think it's hilarious and adorable. I sent you this picture where his handwriting is like 7.5 font, and he has the handwriting of a 4-year-old because he was raised during COVID. And I'm like, well, I forced him to make his own fun. If he were like most of his friends, he'd probably be online right now doing something, and so he's doing this kind of like babyish thing that has some like toxic shade to it.
Hey, it's Quinn. So, as you might be aware, this whole thing started as a simple, hey, here's what you missed newsletter. And today we've turned that one little newsletter into this burgeoning media and tech empire, right? We've got over 50,000 readers in almost 100 countries and tens of thousands of podcast downloads a month and app visitors. And it all comes back to our email and website provider. Beehive not only helps us write and send these beautiful newsletters that actually get into people's inboxes, it also hosts our membership. It hosts our website. It gives us crazy best-in-class analytics with like unlimited ways to review our data. We can run polls and surveys and use custom fields. And also it integrates with a ton of external tools. Their API lets us sync your email user profile to the profile on our app. So everything for you is streamlined and in sync and you don't even see what's going on behind the curtain. It's great. So if you've ever considered starting a newsletter for your hometown, for book club, business, yourself, your art, whatever, Beehive has a deal for you here. You can sign up using my link and you get a 30-day free trial and 20% off for the first 3 months, which is a lot. So I'm going to read you the link, but you got to know it's also in the show notes and you can just click it. Okay. And understand that Beehive is spelled a little funny. It's beehive.com, but it's BEEHIV.com/VIA equals Quinn. Honestly, if you can remember that, congratulations. Otherwise, it's right in the show notes. Check out Beehive today. You guys will love it. We depend on it every minute of every day. So thanks for supporting our partners.
And I don't know, I got to pick the battles, I felt like. But anyway, it was just an interesting example of yet again, when you have your own values or your own ideas of what you want to put out in the world and then your kid like strangely doesn't care about that, But sure, the pod, when we were talking with Lindsay last week, I jokingly, flippantly said something along the lines of kids who do charity work or volunteer, that's like more about the parent than the kid. And then I looked back on that and I was like, that's not really true. And I say that probably thinking about myself, and I'm like mad at myself for not setting up a system, but I felt bad. And I was like, I don't really think I believe that.
But we've been making notes on this literally since one of our first sharing notes about episodes. And it was the original note, main thought was when your kids aren't as woke as you hoped, and that all ties in. And one of the original notes is, where did I go wrong? Is this about me? Backing up from all that, It's like, I had this conversation with my oldest because I've been marinating on this for a while, because when we were in LA, I was constantly like, guys, there's 20 kids in your elementary school that do not have a place to sleep at night. And that's only a small percentage of the large economically disadvantaged folks in just your school, of this enormous school district. So constantly trying to find ways and places for them to directly perform charitable acts of some kind, some sort of service. And we don't do church because whole other thing, but it's hard to find. And when you think about it, obviously it's hard to find for fucking safety reasons. Like, kids can't just show up like Jimmy Carter and start building houses, right? And they're not going to let them package meals. Like, they don't wash their hands at home. They can't get everyone else fucking sick. But it was frustrating. And then you look into, you go, well, okay, so there's scouts, right? And there's some church stuff. So those are options. We just didn't have, I would have loved for him to do scouts, but I was aware that they were going to eventually, if not soon, have to make some choices, But scouts is great. I loved it until I got kicked out. It was like a meeting to move up. I don't know. They told me I had to answer yes to, do I believe in God? And I said,
Oh,
I'm not doing that. And I was whatever, 14, but we were all fucking pagan atheists. My dad, he was a religion major just like I was. And so I just grew up like reading all the books, man, into the whole thing. I was like, look, I can talk to you about some of the stuff. I ended up being a religious studies major, but I was like, I'm not doing the thing. And they were like, well, you're out, which I don't think they do that shit anymore. But anyways, yeah. So, but you can do tremendous service with that stuff. And it's a way to get engaged earlier, obviously. I always felt like that was going to be less about me than did my 5-year-old make a donation this year. So one of the things we started doing, not unlike your son's shooting range, was lemonade stands. Because one of my favorite organizations is Alex's Lemonade Stand, started by a young girl named Alex, who eventually died of pediatric cancer, and her parents ended up running this organization. I've had her dad, Jay, on the show a few times. We became close. And one of the things kids can do is you have a lemonade stand and you raise money for pediatric cancer. They do two things: pediatric cancer research, and they pay travel funds for families who have to travel for trials or treatment or whatever. It's wonderful. You know, one of those organizations that shouldn't have to exist, but in the meantime, let's do it. And so that we found that was a great way for them to get involved, and they got to count the money and do all that stuff. But again, there is always that question, right? Is this about me? And is it enough? And do they fucking care at all? And the conversation I had at one point, and again, he's 12, and I tried to put myself back into shoes, 6th grade, going on 7th grade, is how much room do you have for that stuff at that age? I don't remember paying attention at all to the outside world. I was consumed by how my facial hair looked and girls in sports and maybe my grades. I don't know. That's kind of where it is I'm just trying to have a little empathy there, I guess, as far as.
Well, sure. I mean, it gets complicated pretty early, right? Like, I forgot exactly which kid it was or what amount, but one of them found a penny on the ground and said, I want to give this to the next homeless person I see. And that was an interesting conversation because, like, how dear, I don't even remember. I mean, they were pretty little. So I was like, what a great instinct, to like a beautiful thing, but also, you know, it's hard to explain to someone like that's not nice. That's not going to be
That's
nice.
actually
If you're a
insulting.
person-
Right.
Yeah. But a child can't understand that. And, you know, you're also cognizant of being like, I don't want to like act like I'm out here trying to get an award, because I want it to be seen that my child is giving this person some cash, so just little things like that is hard enough to handle.
You do have to, and I imagine in Chicago too, and you've got in here about your Catholic school enforced volunteerism, but also it's that they like have a penny. I mean, again, like we more or less left LA right when the pandemic started, and my kids were young enough then, but homelessness is everywhere. There were at one point, I think it was like 25,000 people on the streets, 6,000 of which were vets. And, to nip this argument in the bud, everyone says, well, it's Los Angeles, California, homeless people go there because it's warmer. Untrue. They become homeless and in poverty in California. But it was inescapable. Walk into the farmer's market, walk into school, all that stuff. So the conversations kind of started very early out of necessity. Why is that person under a blanket on the streets? Oh, well, everything is unaffordable. They don't have health care. The main driver of poverty is health bills, all this different shit. But like you said, like, when do kids actually grasp the idea of giving back?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think it starts very small and local, obviously, like sharing, because it makes them, and even sometimes if it just feels good to be identified as good, which doesn't apply to every kid, but some kids, they like the little halo feeling of being caught being good. Our last school, for better or for worse, the principal had these caught being kind moments. So you'd get like a big boost and be on the Instagram and like whatever. So in that case, you're almost like, okay, so you're getting rewarded for that. And then also, like, we do various things, this and that here at home. Obviously, like Steve and I ran a reading series for a long time. We would donate all the extra money to this literacy group and, do this and that fundraising. And on the one hand, you feel gross to come home and be like, guess what I did today? I raised blank amount of money. But also,
Right.
I'm proud of that shit. Like when I can't do it, because like for me, it's not just like, I feel good about helping, but also like the work that I put into it and the network I have. And I do want the kids, I guess, sometimes to know, because like to them, everything I do is on this computer that I'm talking to you now. And that includes recording the podcast, earning a living, talking to my friends, reading gossip, like watching TV shows. And so I'm sure they'll never really understand what it takes to like ask people to help raise money for the Trevor Project, and fundraiser and do it. But I guess I want them to know that's kind of how I do spend my time. But, I don't know if they're like Wow, great. I want to be like that.
It is hard, right? Because again, it's not like you're not taking them every Sunday to a soup kitchen, which is another thing, again, like I tried to do. And they're like, no, your kids are 4. Fuck
Yeah,
off.
right.
Please don't bring your fucking kids here.
Please don't bring your tiny child
Yeah,
near the
you're
soup, let
disgusting
alone
child
me.
here.
And that's another thing. I did this for Evil Witches a long time. Someone wrote me a really good question about talking to kids with about folks who may have drug issues or mental illness issues, which is not the same thing as homelessness. There can be crossover, but do not want to paint with too wide a brush. But that is also very hard to do that on the fly and do it in a way that is accurate and compassionate. And sometimes it's scary. Sometimes we all have, I feel like, a moment or two and you're like, don't know how to explain that to a kid. But yeah, it is just way more complicated than we would like to think, which is, yeah.
It always is. And that's why I get yelled at by them for, turning everything into a catastrophe and start to pull the string. They'll say one thing and I'm like, and that's why 9/11. And they're like, fuck, man. All right.
Yeah.
Never mind. And then I'm like, oh, they're not going to tell me shit anymore. They're not going to tell me a funny joke their friends have that they think is funny, but it turns out it's because of a suicide bomber or whatever,
Oh, did I say this? Did I send this to you? Paul sent me some TikTok of some guys making some phrase that like may have been culturally insensitive or was just like jibber jabber. Couldn't tell. And they were just throwing 2-liter bottles of pop on the floor of different locations, seeing if they would explode or not. And on the one hand, I was like, Paul, like he's trying to show me something that he thinks is funny and sweet. And also on the other hand, I'm like, I said, if I ever catch you doing something like this for content, I will take your phone away and I'll spank you in public. But again, these two cross things where you're like, I want to encourage him sharing with me. Also, the things that he wants to share can be absolute garbage. But how do I, steer him from that without just being like, don't ever show me what you like?
I try to throw in stuff like, we laughed at the same dumb kind of things, like even worse, but here's some things we've learned since, and also you grew up, this and this. I'm like, so I don't fault you for wanting to do it. However, here's the reason why you can't do that or whatever it might be. But again, like that's the other side of the charitable child, right? The woke child. But
The charitable child. It sounds like the world's like least interesting book.
But it's like Dana and I talk about, again, when we're purging and whatever, and we had the whole episode on just the plastic and all that shit. And you're like,
yeah,
am I really throwing this away? Should we make him give it away? And she's like, what fucking mom is going to be excited when their child, when they go to whatever, restore, and it's a pile of shit? Who wants more? No one wants more of that. That's not helpful. It's not useful. Just because I'm bummed that it's going to go in a fucking landfill. But at the same time, so we got rid of a lot of books. That was helpful. And I tell them, and I say, you're coming to the library with me. We're giving these away. You're coming to your school. You're going to talk to your librarian. Here's a list of the books. You take them to her and say, do you want these books? I'm trying to, things that they grasp, quite literally. But yeah, the rest of it's hard. But again, like I come back to what do they have room for without being super privileged about it? Because, I wrote a whole thing. I was quite angry called The Disconnect about how and why the youths are so angry. Part of that is because whether they don't have room for it because of yearbook or girls or boys or everything, they're more connected than anyone's ever been. So they're more aware of everything all the time, immediately. They look up and go, no one's fucking doing anything about this, or worse. So they're furious about it. But that comes back to that question then of, again, like, how did you phrase it? Like, when do they grasp the idea and the concept and I guess the utility of being charitable in some way, And it's got to start somewhere, I guess. There's got to be some lacking. Again, for us, it's been trying to give away things that they cherish, not just extra stuff, but like, hey, you're done with this and you got a lot of value out of it. Someone else can use this thing, even if they're not directly giving it to that child or that person. But yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one. And of course, again, you have kids and you're like, they're 6 months old and you're like, we're going to be the fucking woke family. And you're like, they don't know they have hands or feet.
Right, exactly. We're going to go take them down to the like recycling, and that's the other thing is like, nothing like, I hope you go through this as well, despite all your good intentions of the, like, where you carefully sort, you sort, recycle, and then you hit maximum, like, I don't know, like DEFCON 5, and you're like, fuck all this. And then you throw everything like right in the garbage, or you
Fully.
set it on fire with the gas. Just the most, fuck it. I'm just going to the landfill. I don't give a shit. And then.
Yeah, 100%. That happened literally last night when one of my children, I sat there. I was like, you know what I'm going to do tonight? Sunday night. I'm tired. I think I have the ingredients to make like plant-based chicken parm. Like plant-based nuggets. We use the corn ones, which are amazing. QUORN. They're out of somewhere in Europe. Terrible packaging, great product. And we use the Daya mozzarella, shredded mozzarella that actually melts pretty well, and Parmesan, because fuck it, and some red sauce. And so I'm making this, and I'm not reinventing the fucking wheel. I've made more complicated things they hated before. One of them walks up, again, a whole day, spending my weekend on this, just walks up, looks at it and goes, I'm not going to eat that. I was halfway through making it, and I was like, child. And again, we're wrestling with the don't be food phobic, don't make them do this and this, like whatever works. And that's why we do the share plate, all this. And yet in that moment, I was like, now you're going to eat it. And now I am going to take that recycling bag that I was going to make sure goes in the right bin. And I'm going to dump it all over the fucking front yard. Like I just, yeah.
I'm sorry. Did they eat it? I mean,
fuck. No, they had like crackers for dinner. And I just sat there doing it. In fact, Dana made me take the dog for a walk in the middle of dinner because she was like, this isn't going great for anybody involved.
I also want to know how it turned out.
It was fine. It was good. It's chicken parm. It's like one of the greatest meals ever. It's so fucking basic.
I know. I've never made chicken parm with like real chicken or not chicken. So I tip my hat to your ambition.
No, there's no ambition. It's like I happen to have ingredients for it. And it's not that fucking difficult. But again, I'm not going to eat that. Oh, well.
Yeah. No, it's
not going to have a bed tomorrow when you get home from school.
Yeah, exactly. That's if your child is working on an essay and they're halfway through it and they've been laboring on it. And you're like, this isn't going to be good. I'm not going to show up to your parent-teacher conference for this. Well, one nice thing about Catholic school is that we outsource all teachings of values basically to our kids. Not all, of course. In fact, we actually try to undo some of what. Actually, to be fair, our school, we're not undoing them very much. But for Paul's grade, I don't think he did it last year. Maybe he did it. But as a student, you have to fill quota of volunteer hours. And I don't know what happens if you don't get it, but you have to do a certain amount of community hours and family hours, which I think is a good way of making sure that you don't just get, babysit your brother for 3 nights and there you go. So that was nice because that made him do it. And we figured out, of course, the labor. I mean, if I had assigned this to Steve, I'm sure he would have taken them, but it fell on me, of course, to find the volunteer opportunities that like worked for us. Because you can't just roll up to the library and be like, here I am, And he thought for a little bit that maybe he would be an altar server at church, but I don't think he understood that you have to like train for that commitment. You can't just like drop in and be done at 15 hours. So we made some lunches, like sack lunches for Connections for the Homeless. And there's a group called, it has a horrible name, and it's called Feed My Starving Children. And you go and you like make these food. It's like a Christian food bank organization. And you go and fill up these bags that they ship off to God knows where, honestly. But, it's kind of fun. And you watch a video about who this helps. And I forget what else he did. Like his friends worked at a soup kitchen. So it was nice because he got pushed into, I think, like doing some more advanced sort of helping. And he learned that it can be actually really fun to volunteer with your friends. Of course, he's maximum age where doing anything with your friends is a way to goof around. So he turns anything into fun. But I like that. I think that's like I'm glad that kind of came with all the things that they keep on top of him. Thank you for providing some kind of structure for us to be on top of him for this. So like your
I think
kids
it's great. And and the best part about that is them being like, no, you have to do it. This is not like an optional we would like your kids to do. It's part of their fucking curriculum, and that is great because then you're like, you got to figure. And per your note of course, it fell on me to figure out like what the fuck works for our family. Yet another, Jenga piece or Tetris piece to slide into the puzzle. 2 things. One, I think I messaged you that I'm such a calendar freak. And yet I had my child miss his baseball game this weekend, which was great. And in 10 minutes, he was like telling my wife, oh, I don't want dad to feel bad. I'm like, no, it can't be about making me feel better. That's not the whole thing. But anyways.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes you're just like, you know what? Everyone gets an L sometimes. And I don't know. You just got to be as gentle on it as you would be just anyone like yourself.
Yeah, no, 100%. No one's worse at treat yourself the way you want to be treated. I wake up and I'm like, look at you, rickety fucking asshole. It's not great. But anyways, on the scheduling, I did want to make a note. And this is, again, like a little note from my day job. You mentioned you can't just show up for a lot of volunteering. And that's actually really true a lot of the time. These places are so underfunded and short-staffed. You'd think that showing up would be really helpful. But in fact, on the administrative side, like they're so coordinated with who does what and what room they have to manage people And again, verify like if it's Habitat for Humanity, do you have tools? Are they in good shape? Are you going to get hurt? There's so much stuff, but also especially for like during disaster stuff, really pay attention to what they're saying about one, who can show up and who cannot. And if they say don't come, don't fucking come. But also two, pay attention to what they're saying. Again, usually groups that have existed on the ground before this disaster. Not to say the GoFundMe's and stuff that pop up aren't great and necessary, but there's usually groups that know what they're doing. They know the neighborhoods, et cetera, et cetera. If they're like, look, we have enough toys. Please stop sending toys, even though you think it'll make kids feel good. What they probably need is one, money, but two, underwear, socks, diapers, bottles, all that kind of stuff. And be specific about that and find out what they actually need. And don't just drop it off, make a time and make sure, because again, like you want to think we'll be the family that's just going to show up and do this, but that's not super helpful to the people who work there who make $15,000 a year. Don't be the jerk that shows up to dump a bunch of stuff off at, again, like a restore or whatever it is, where you're like half of it's like a maybe,
Yeah,
a dog
right.
peed on it one time and you think it's gonna be fine. That doesn't fucking help any. They can't use it's just gonna take up their time,
Yeah.
But there are a lot of awesome things that people can do. It's hard to find for kids, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. I wanted to ask you this. I kind of have two questions based on one, but I have been finding myself, and part of it is just the kids' nature of their school, like spending a lot more time volunteering at the school because they just really pull you in and ask you to, like in a way that I respect. Actually, they don't guilt trip you. I don't think they make working parents feel bad. They just certainly have no, they never let up, and that's fine. And, and that's good for my kids. But then I feel a little guilty that it's not serving the broader community. I'll put that guilt on the guilt pile for, when I
Mm.
sort through all that. But I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday who like usually does a lot of work with the League of Women Voters. And she's just kind of taking a knee right now. And she's trying, and I think a lot of people right now who normally do a lot of activating, especially right now, it feels like people don't know where to best put their energy. I know that's what your whole newsletter is about, but do you feel like it's fair for people to, if they have a choice to volunteer closer to home or kind of figure out what's going on? Or if someone is like, I want to do something right now, but I want to use my time really well and not spin my wheels mental health wise, what are you telling them to check into or do?
I mean, there's a few different answers to that. And it's a really good question because everybody is like, it's a lot, The shortest, easiest answer is, wouldn't it be nice to optionally show up for things, to be able to optionally show up when increasing number of folks like don't have an option for that. And even if they did need to show up to fight for union or hours or better pay or time off or food or whatever it might be, they can't because they can't get off their hourly job. And they're already on the fence because their kid was sick one day last week. And they were like, well, too fucking bad. So what we try to really do with the app, which is like really this become like the most focused thing. Because here's the thing. So many people don't have time or energy or life force to read a newsletter or listen to a podcast for an hour about anything, even if it's like a cool new thing. They're like, here's the deal, I'm spinning out, or I really want to apply myself. I need to do this as quickly and efficiently as I can. And I've been there. Again, I wrote a whole thing about I didn't know why I needed to make an app. And it turns out like, yeah, I got it. I didn't know what the fuck to do. And the good news is there's a lot of really great places and they're really defined in what they need and how to do it, whether you're donating abroad to something like Against Malaria, which is something you'll probably never interact with, but it is the most effective organization on planet Earth for, I think it's, $20, something like that. You will basically save a life, essentially, with a treated bed net. You will never see that child. You never interact with them. Maybe if you travel over there, you'll get your shots. There is a disconnect for sure, doing it from afar, but it is about as measurable of an impact if you make. If you're like, look, I'm struggling to show up any other way right now. And that's okay because one, it's extremely effective and super fucked up that those kids have to deal with it, something we'll never even have to think about. And two, it's not super, and again, this feels a little privileged, but I want to phrase this constructively, which is it's not really helpful again to the other people that are doing the work for you to show up and not be, I don't want to say your best self, but like productive of being there or become a wrench in some way, even if you don't want to be. Then they have to manage you. And that's taking the room of, again, someone else who could be doing this work, whatever it might be. But there's a lot of different ways. And again, you can donate and you can do that locally. So I went to a meeting the other night. They're trying to build a new library in town to replace the old one, which is great. A lot of memories there. It doesn't support the population. And it's just enough to kind of show up and realize like you don't have to say anything. You can look at the plans and be like, okay, if they're putting in ramps, great. That helps. Most
Mhm.
people who show up to stuff are fighting against it and not for good. They're usually boomers and they don't want the neighborhood character ruined, or they've been disincentivized on Facebook by somebody. If you show up and just, again, look over that stuff or ask, hey, just want to make sure there's going to be like more programs and rooms for tutoring. Just
Mhm.
asking that question doesn't require a lot. And I know it's a lot to go to a meeting and things like that. But those are things you can do locally that can make a real difference that, again, like really won't burn you out in whatever capacity. So the guy who builds our app, Connor, who's been a very good friend for a very long time, and his wife, Katie, amazing screenwriter. They're both parents. Before they were parents, every Sunday, they went and read books to kids with cancer at LA's Children's Hospital. And on the one hand, you're like, well, you're obviously up there in like the statistically best people I know, but no, that's not an easy thing to do. That's
Mhm.
going to take it out of you, you know? And if you are able to do that, like when my sister-in-law worked in hospice, and she's like, it's beautiful. And you're like, yeah, that's one way to phrase it. I would drink every night. You got to know you and what you're able to show up to do. And
Mhm.
truthfully, if it's, you know, if you like kids, whether you have kids or not, or you're older and it's volunteering at your kid's school, that's super helpful because any relief you can provide teachers and administrative tasks is amazing to them. It
Mm.
frankly doesn't matter as long as they're telling you what they need.
Can I give a shout out to a piece
Yeah.
of advice to anyone listening who has kids who are young elementary school age or about to be? The best job ever, I think, for volunteering in a school is to be the mystery reader. Your school
Mhm.
might have another name for it, but all you do is show up at your kid's school without them knowing with a couple of books, and you read a book to the classroom, and you feel
Right.
like Beyonce,
Yeah.
and like you feel so famous, and the kids are so excited, and you
But
feel like you feel so good. The teacher gets 20 minutes to
teacher gets
whatever.
20 fucking minutes. And what did that take from you? So the other cheat code, so I have a few, like, again, I love all my children equally. Once we've really researched and like curated things and put them in the app or recommend them in the newsletter, whatever it might be, they're good until we review them again and make sure. But I have a few that are like my go-tos for one, I just throw Medi on them, but also because they're so specific in what they do and they're helpful. One of my favorites is Donors Choose, which could
Mm,
be a little more specific in its name, but basically it is teachers saying, we need these specific supplies. Can you contribute towards them? Here's what we would do. And then again, we just talked about this. There's this very understandable but semi-annoying argument of, is it charity if you're looking forward to the thanks, right? And
mm,
somewhere the certificate. Man, if you're showing up, I don't care. If you're cutting a check, I don't care if it came from oil. If it's going towards one of the things we recommend, we'll take your bad money. Donors Choose. You buy some classroom materials, whatever they're asking. They need these books to replace these ones are tattered, or one computer, whatever it might be. Or so they'll get bouncy ball chairs for kids with ADHD, whatever it is. You will often, not always, get at some undetermined time a package in the mail, and it is handwritten thank you notes from these children.
oh,
And it's like the greatest fucking feeling on the planet. And so, yeah, you're not going and showing up at the school. You're not Santa Claus showing up a bunch of shit, and you're
yeah.
not kids in malaria. But man, it is a cheat code. It really is. And they have matching days and stuff. You can find ones in your area, or you can say, no, I want to donate to Detroit or whatever it is.
Mm.
You know, it's wonderful. So again, there's plenty of things like that. They're so easy and so effective. It seems like cheating, even if you feel a little disconnected. But yeah, if you want to show up, there's ways to do it that don't burn you out. People need food.
Yeah.
Hey, I have 3 kids. They eat so much. We try to eat real food. We try to cook when we can. We try not to waste too much because it drives me nuts and it's expensive. And also for obvious climate reasons, which is why the Mill food recycler changed our lives a couple years ago. It is an odorless, effortless, and fully automated food recycler. Look, we've had this thing front and center in our kitchen for, again, a couple years now, it feels like, and it is just such a game changer. Way less waste, less smell, way less garbage, which, by the way, saves you money. No leaky bags. Look, you got peels, bones, stalks, whatever, leftovers. dump them in the mill, and mill dries and grinds them while you sleep. Again, it doesn't smell, which I don't understand. It's sleek. It's actually sexy. Here's a question people ask. How often do you empty it? Good question. It's every 3 weeks. I don't know, maybe. And there's a bunch of us. Plus, there's a little app where you can control it if you want and set a schedule, and it shows you how much food your family keeps out of landfills. A delight. Look, you can get $75 off right now when you go to our special partner site. I'm going to read you the link, but you should know it's also in the show notes, and you can just click it. It is mill.com/lp/important-not-important. That is mill.com/lp/important-not-important. I couldn't remember that, so we put it in the show notes. It's right there for you. Check it out. Huge thanks to Mill for sponsoring our work and doing the right thing. And thanks to all of you listeners for supporting our partners. You know, there's really great organizations you can host if you're up for it. Are you good at planning shit, but you want to do it on your own, not like through a school or whatever? There's organizations that just do like food events. You can turn it into a community event, hire a fucking band, do it, make it fun. Just because, like you said, just because your kid can make it fun doesn't mean like it's not great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be brutal all the time.
So I'm doing this Evil Witches. I'm doing some research for a future issue. And I don't know, it's just been in my brain for several years, honestly. And I don't know what shape it's going to take. But I always think about obviously it's good luck and it's obviously privilege, but also just think it's really interesting from an organizational standpoint, how some schools, obviously ones with more money and parents who have time, have parent organizations that are very organized and can delegate and can meet. And so I'm doing a thing about the downside of that is parents who end up becoming an expert in something that they never wanted to, like building codes, for instance, or, you know, special needs teaching, you know, different like needs, things like that. And yeah, and I guess it's just such a strange idea of school volunteer, because as a parent, you feel so tapped out, like that it can't possibly feel like you're giving back. Basically, it feels like you're just giving of yourself. And then at the same time, you're like, well, who is this really helping? Like, it's helping my kid, obviously, in the school community, but it can get it's an interesting pathway from parents who can like barely hang on to, you know, the daycare pickups and the diapers and things like that. And then you get like an ounce of bandwidth and you kind of get shoved into maybe this sort of administrative role. And it is like it's like a privilege to do this for work for free, but also that if you don't have someone who can do this, I don't know how to explain it.
No, you're making complete sense. You're like, I am already done. I'm a shell of a human, and we got through dinner, but I haven't even done bedtime, which, guess what? Wonderful, horrific. And then I got to get on and make the spreadsheet that everyone asks the questions about, or someone changes, or this or that, and you got to go by their rules and the precedents. Well, we've always done it this way with the past fucking treasurer, and it kills you. I fully empathize with all of it, but I do try to come back to, again, coming from the LA school system. And here kids are struggling everywhere, you know, but that was particularly tough. Often, if they don't actually fill those roles, it won't happen. And they won't have, you know, our school, which is one of the very few like really good public schools in LA, elementary school, you know, the parents as a whole paid for science, English, music, art, all that. If they don't raise that money, the kids do not have art. They do not have science. They do not have that. They had a part-time nurse. You know, like it does, in a way, it's a little what you're signing up for. Some of the private school stuff is insane where they're like, well, it goes towards our endowment for this. I'm like, I'm not doing it. But if you're like, they need $200,000 total dollars on the year to cover these programs, to pay extra Head Start teachers, especially right now, whatever it is, and you happen to be good at accounting or organizing or whatever the thing is, it probably won't actually happen, because that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And so as much as we've got STEM and all this, you'll have kids that a lot of schools are switching to like pamphlets instead of books now, because they don't have the books. They can't afford the books. The teachers don't have time, this and that. It's not happening. So I get it. But also the last thing I ever want to do is put more on teachers. So many of whom, by the way, are like going home to children. Holy shit. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh yeah. And they're looking forward to a summer job, like at Target or something like that.
Right. And then the parents are like, why didn't you email me? It's 9:00 at night. I reached out to you. And I get pretty indignant is probably not the word I would use, but it's up there.
Yeah, for sure. I've been doing some work in the consulting area. Like I write bios for this consulting firm. So the idea of organization and organizational change and the fact that someone can make six figures easily to go into organizations and be like, here's how you guys are going to run better. And schools are kind of expected to do that sui generis, generis. What's the phrase of its own sui generis? Is that
I don't
the,
know. I don't speak Spanish, Claire. Come on. Let's go.
that's good.
Come on, Baxter.
Anyway, I just think about how you just take it. I guess when you're a kid, maybe when you're a certain kind of kid and you're used to like a certain white collar world, you're used to it. You feel like adults will somehow know how to form a committee and lead a committee, and you assume that someone will understand how to lead a meeting and all the stuff that you're like, that is so insane that what a weird.
It's like discovering that your parents are people. You're just like, oh, like everyone is fucking barely holding it together. Yeah, most people cannot write, cannot organize a meeting, don't know the way around accounting. Like, it's not great.
Yeah. No, I was on a school board during COVID, and that was way out of my like pay grade of determining the path of a school during COVID. And are we opening this up? And what's the story? Like it was terrifying to me. And I was like, it's like that thing of just realizing no one's in charge. I guess someone was in charge and
The
you're like,
adults aren't coming.
is it
We're the
me?
adults.
Oh,
But it goes back to our conversation about them letting you take a baby home from the hospital, right? Because you're looking
Yeah.
around, you're like, who? They're letting me. What are you
Yeah.
fucking talking about? It's like my
Yeah.
buddy who's the captain on a submarine. Every 5-10 years or whatever, they'll call me, our other best friend, and we're like, so I don't know, like the things we know. But it does matter. And frankly, for other volunteering, and this is less for kids, except for the age thing. And are they morons? Are they going to pay attention? Are they going to be helpful? Are they not going to make it harder? There are certain things you're going to be qualified to do and certain things you can't. Like you, Claire, can probably not go travel and participate with Doctors Without Borders. It's in the name. You didn't make the cut. I'm
not
sorry.
Doctors and Claire Without
Yeah,
Borders.
Doctors and Claire Without Borders. Right. Not great. You can contribute to them. But this was my origin story. Was before my buddy died of cancer, my cousin got diagnosed with leukemia. And I was like, what do I do? I was 23, 22, 23, 24, something like that. Still in pretty good shape. And I was like, first of all, what the fuck is blood cancer? Like, how does that? I always imagined a tumor, like all these things you didn't pay attention to, right? And learned about it. And I was like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I want to help. But for someone who is always like annoyingly sort of talented at various sports and things came easily, when someone's like, it's blood cancer. And you're like, how does that even start? What are you talking about? I have no idea what to do with this. There's an organization. So one of the primary organizations working with researchers in blood cancers is the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I was like, okay, that's great. But again, like, I don't have much money. Like, I'm barely making overtime in my job. What do I do? They have a fundraising arm called Team in Training. Been around forever. And you just sign up for a race and you train with a bunch of other awesome people who have signed up for another reason. You raise money. They have some talks sometimes with both current patients and people who are in remission and researchers who are like, here is where I'm going to put that $10,000 to use. This is the work I'm working on, why it's a hard nut to crack. And I was like, oh, I can sweat? Like, I can fucking do that. You are qualified to do more things than you think. And a lot of organizations build themselves around that on purpose because there's people who can do that and they can channel that and you just go and fundraise. Great. They'll take the money that, great. It helps. Another example that I did a few times was with, God, I'm totally blanking on the name. They used to have them at Equinox. It's for rare cancers. There's a bunch of people showed up on the fucking Soul Cycle bikes and you biked and you raced.
Oh, the Cycle for Survival?
Cycle for Survival. It's great. I think a couple years ago, they had it like live in Times Square. Okay. So you get to train, you get to have fun, you get to tell people, does it seem like glorious and you take pictures and there's a backdrop and all that? Sure. But if you raise $100,000 for rare cancers or pediatric cancers, which get this much compared to federal funding, that is actually going to move the needle and you can feel really good about that.
So our kids are roughly at the same age, like late middle school-ish. So are your kids, are they engaged, either any of them, on any particular organizations or causes? Like are they familiar with any groups like them?
They're really involved in school stuff. Most of that kind of stuff they just don't qualify for yet, which again is understandable. They're morons, right? In their best moments, they're unpredictable morons. Why would you want them around a hammer or a stove or anything like that? Whatever your intentions are, please don't make it worse. My daughter wants to start working with one of the animal groups in town. You can like volunteer at the vet and stuff like that. Great. you're just moving papers around. Who cares? She does after school stuff where she helps the teachers. Again, they're just like, can you take these boxes to this other classroom? That seems dumb. And the girls are like, oh, I'm killing it,
Well,
but save that teacher 10 fucking minutes. Who's already staying after school, by the way?
yeah.
That kind of stuff matters. Their sports teams are starting to get involved in things like that. We're going to do one of those package up meals events. And again, try to make it a
Mhm,
big community thing. And I'm going to say to them, like, you're in charge. You guys
mhm,
have to figure this out when it is, invite people, all this, and put as much on them as I can. To a really great new organization started, we discovered the privileged among us discovered that a bunch of kids in the school system were showing up to school with dirty clothes on, and
mhm.
one felt terrible, and two could get bullied for it, which is again makes flames come out of my face. And so a kid, really cool, started an organization to raise money for laundry machines at the schools.
Mm,
And we took them. We're like, guess what? We're going to that. You're playing the bingo. You're doing all the things. Put some of
mhm.
your money towards it because those are kids they interact with every day, you know?
Yeah.
So yes and no is the
Mhm.
answer. We're going to keep making room for that stuff. But it's, again, you have to recognize like who your kids are, what age they are, what they're capable of. But then I do
Yeah.
encourage you to really make room for it. Because as you know, man, if they don't grow up with a soccer ball on their feet, they're probably not going to be a soccer player. If you don't, push this stuff in some way,
Yeah.
whether it's about you or about them, flies by. Then you're just an
Yeah.
American.
Yeah. No, it's interesting out there for sure. We did connections for the homeless, making
Hmm.
lunches for them here. And then, it's so dumb, but I do explain to them the connection, like that we do Ronald McDonald, like round up at McDonald's. And they're like, they round, if your bill is 283, they round up to
Sure.
3. And they're like, what is that? And I tell them it's a place for kids like you who might be sick and can't go home and you have to stay near the hospital, Then I do a conversation with Paul about how when I was a kid, Ronald McDonald used to be in the Evanston 4th of July parade every year, and that was a big deal. And then we somehow ended up in the conversation about what if Ronald McDonald got assassinated at the 4th of July parade. I don't remember how this ended up. We were having a good laugh that you can only have with your 12-year-old. And you're like, we've been through some shit together, man. We'd like to have a good time.
Oh yeah.
But
Where's the Zapruder film on that? Like the who was the second gunman
Lance
on the
was his
grassy knoll
hair. Yeah.
that took down
Anyway,
Ronald McDonald? That's
but
incredible.
that's one good way of feeling like not like a bad mom for going to McDonald's. But no, it does make me laugh because there are school fundraisers, but they are so again, it'll be like $2, which finding $2 in this day and age is like a task. And it'll be like $2 for homeless animals or something like that. And you're like, remember this happened like right after the California wildfires. And I'm not normally this person, but I was like, I don't have time to worry about the Illinois homeless pets while I'm thinking about the California homeless people. But
Totally get it. Yeah, totally get it. Good news is there's going to be some people who do care about that stuff and are going to do it no matter what. But, there are critically ignored things. But again, it's like what we really try to focus on with the app, especially when I try to model where I can, knowing that I came from a place of, I don't know flashcards. I don't know how to help these people, right? When my
mhm,
buddy was dying, I was like, I don't know what to do. So I ran again. We did a fundraiser for Livestrong. Did it
mhm,
save him? No. Did it help some other people? I hope so, you know?
yeah.
But again, like knowing your wheelhouse, how do you like to show up? How do your kids like to show up about things? Who are
Mhm,
they? What do they like to do? Is it art and they bring it to the hospital?
mm.
Hey man, that's something. Like let them hang it up. That stuff, it does add up. And I do believe it plants a seed.
After our conversation with Lindsay last week as well, I think about how my mentality towards money, I guess when you boil down to it, if you have enough to think of it this way and you're not living dollar per dollar, it is a little bit like what you described with your kids is you work hard and you want to save some and you want to spend some and you want to give some away. And as a kid, again, they're very, my son is finding, like he wants to go to the 7-Eleven and he wants to make a shooting range. But if he does see my neighbor, this happened one time, he offered to help her carry her groceries to the car. And she told me about that. That's how I found out. And I was like, okay, that's a good boy. Like I'll take
Yeah.
the Nerf
Yeah.
gun for the helping the neighbor
Totally.
kind of, you
100%.
know?
But it's also if you don't have the bandwidth for it or resources in any capacity, but looking around your everyday life and the things you may have time wise, bandwidth wise, resources wise, that your kids not necessarily take for granted, but can touch and feel that's someone else probably cannot. Clothes they grew out of. If you don't have a younger sibling or something, yeah, that stuff adds up. Cans food, they'll always take that kind of stuff. The laundry thing was really specific because you
Mhm.
and I have talked about my kids being mad that like their fucking pants are clean. Or I'm like, guess what? Now some of your
Yeah.
friends have no clean clothes, and so you're going to contribute some money to that
Mhm.
because go fuck yourself. Try not to phrase it that way, but that's how I feel some of the times, and that's again, when they say, I'm not going to eat that, instantly.
Or when my kid doesn't want to do the thing like cleaning up after himself, and then I get on my bike of, should I clean up after you then? Is that fair? That kind of,
No, fully.
yeah.
Look, I told one of them, I don't know, somebody this weekend, I think we were talking about the laundry thing. And we had just gotten a new washer and dryer because my dryer just took 3 cycles. Again, like, lucky to have that stuff, lucky to be able to get a new one, all that stuff. And, there's a Toni Morrison quote that is applicable to a lot of things, but I think is easy for kids to understand if you apply it to something, again, that they can touch and feel. And it just reminded me, I said, the function of freedom is to free someone else. And if you possibly have any bandwidth there, any extra bandwidth to do that with whatever, then use it. Don't let it go to waste,
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to do that.
Did your kids end up doing scouting, by the way, or that stopped with you?
No, we went on a couple hikes with the local group and it seemed great. The people all seemed great. I was just, it was on me. It was instantly doing the math of, okay, well then it means on Sunday night, we got to go to this place and I know they're going to still want to do this thing. And then they do this. And it just kind of passed us by. But we have a few friends who do it who love it, man. They love it. I don't even think they call it Boy Scouts anymore. Scouts and Girl Scouts, which also seems great. Yeah, I would recommend it highly. I'm bummed we didn't do it, but we have no time.
Yeah, no, you can't do everything. And if you're on the sports thing, you can't also add in, there's no night meetings and, anything like that. And truly, I am also writing thank you notes for the teacher bonus fundraiser thing. So I couldn't take them to a meeting if I wanted to.
We try to really help people connect locally with things is you have to always, it's like the whole thing of everyone's looking at me, thinking about me, and they're just thinking about themselves. Most people in businesses are so redlining it, borderline, whatever it is all the time. They won't have the operational awareness to even know that some of these things are possible or an option. There's a really cool app service group out there I think it's called Good to Go. And they just build networks of unused food from restaurants. And if you know anything about restaurants, they're barely above water at all times. The best ones, your favorite restaurant is barely fucking making it, right? It's probably a front for something. They don't have the time to figure this stuff out. But if you start by not being a dick and just bringing them a flyer or something, or talking to somebody, popping in, don't ask for extra time. Hey, would love to see this happen. Let me know if I can help. I can bring more information. Do you guys even have extra food? What you're ordering? They're not going to have time. Go back a couple times. Just say, can I help? Can I do something, about this? Because if you make it not a super heavy lift for them, they then get to be like, hey, we participate in this thing. Great. But you could be a part of that. And there's probably a bunch of places you can do it.
Yeah. One place that I donated a long time ago, and this is a good use of my time when I had more time to do this, but the prison in Illinois, women's prison, was looking for books. And so if you are someone who is, offloading a bunch of books from your parents' house or downsizing, prisons often need books. Of course, I learned that they need paper covers only for one thing. And I'm sure there's a ton of other, but that, you think of folks that you're like, when you're trying to actually not just dump the books at the box, and or in a little free library, and you're like, this is just, I know secretly deep down, I like to think I'm helping other people, but I'm really just helping myself by getting rid of a little task.
Yes and no. I'm going to go over really quick a list of the places, and this is no means I guess it is it's my job to do a lot of this stuff, and these are the ones I've chosen. We have a certain budget, which I don't need to get into, but these are the places I'm actively donating to on a recurring basis right now. I'm going to pick a few of these because they usually do one thing very specifically, and it's usually a core need. And I promise, I have done the work to know that these are good places. And so this is going to vary a little bit. So up there with Against Malaria is a group called Giving Directly. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It just gives people cash. And it is wildly effective. There's all kinds of white papers on it, things like that. Cannot recommend enough. I put in the show notes, I have a conversation with one of their founders from a few years ago. They work mostly in Africa. During COVID, they did some work in the US. It is proven over and over again because here's the thing. Sometimes people need water. Sometimes people need a roof. Sometimes people need food. Sometimes different people need different things. What you're giving them is agency to take care of what they need on an ongoing basis. And then maybe pull a leg up and actually start a business, whatever it might be. Give Directly is fantastic. Food Forward in Southern California does a really great job. Again, seems super intuitive. They go and harvest food off of all the fucking public and private fruit trees that people never deal with. And they bring and donate truly like millions of pounds of food a day. It's really wild of food. Again, that's not packaged. It's nutritious. No one was going to eat it. Doesn't cost anything. That's amazing. You can also volunteer with them. Here's a segment that I really love, which is a new breed of really specific nonprofit journalism. The 19th covers women's issues. They're fantastic in what they do. They do absolutely essential work. ProPublica does the same thing. The Markup does really great work on your private data and all the people that are stealing it and buying it. Capital B has a national newsroom and a couple local ones. They do Black news in and by and of those communities. There's a few others like that. Hot Bread Kitchen in Brooklyn. I think they're still in Brooklyn. They train immigrant women to be cooks and bakers so they can have jobs and get a real visa. They're fantastic. And once a year, if you donate enough, you get invited up there and get you eat food. It's pretty great. Obviously, ACLU and AACP, stuff like that right now. Planned Parenthood, obviously. Boys and Girls Club still does amazing work. Again, another place, Greater West Hollywood Food Coalition. It's what it sounds like. They're giving people food. So there's a lot of things like that. That's not the list by any stretch, but find places that do one thing. When they get too broad or they get too big, it becomes pretty hard to hold up. I would choose any of these over, for example, the Red Cross. Wonderful history, been to the museum, it's great. It becomes hard to be efficient and economical at that size versus places that do one thing. Black Girls Code. It's exactly what it sounds like, and they spend their money very well. So you get the idea. There's ways for things, whether how you like to show up, what you're skilled in, or things you just kind of give a shit about, but maybe you didn't realize.
Yeah. But if someone's listening to this and they just literally just had a baby or their kids, don't beat yourself up if you're not there yet. I think
Oh
you
my
discover
God, please,
your
no.
bandwidth as you go along. And I think there's especially, I don't know, it took me a while to give myself the permission to take the like energy I needed to parent and stop pretending like had all the same faculties and wasn't just plus one child. So like,
No.
I don't know. Don't feel guilty if you are a new parent or in a hard situation and it seems like people are involved and, you're just trying to leave the house with clean hair if possible. So, it's to your ability if you can.
It is to your ability. It truly is. One of the things we're building into the app is the ability to donate within the app. And we have this option to be able to tell how much you contributed. And we're not doing that because all that matters is like you just literally donated $1 a month to something because it makes you feel like you're doing something. And frankly, for like most people, that goes a long way, man, because it's hard. And you also don't want to make yourself feel like shit you're not doing something. Take a fucking minute. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. That's the whole point of this podcast. It's fucking not right now.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Even Bill Gates is going to be done giving his money away, apparently. I don't understand.
Yeah, he's like,
how is that possible? What happens then if he's just going to spend all the money and then be done and then just like chill? Is that his plan with the foundation?
Well, I think he said 2045. And at that point, he's probably not with us anymore. He's not a spring chicken. They've already just determined what they're giving their kids. I don't know how that went on with their divorce stuff. She's doing something different now and she's great. Say whatever you want about them, but yeah, they're given a lot. So yeah, I think that's the idea. Here's the time frame. What do we have to do? So whatever you care about, whatever you're into, however you like or are capable of showing up at all, there's a way to do it. Or take a minute.
Yeah.
Bringing lunch to the teachers or coffee counts a lot.
Or taking some food to the food pantry. I mean, the like actual food pantry, not the little free one where you don't have to talk to anyone or actually put like actual pants on.
Great. It's food in there. Don't care. No one cares how you dress. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
And your kids won't care. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. Again, how do you get kids? So it's not just about you. I don't know, man. I guess just doing it, making it a part of your family's life in whatever way you're capable of.
Yeah. I think like for those who have little kids and are like, can you get your kid to volunteer? I think it's more about just teaching empathy and thinking about like other folks. I remember like when there's a really bad storm out, I would try to get the boys like, aren't you glad you don't live in a tent next to Lakeshore Drive right now? Aren't you glad we have this nice house that has stood all this time and hasn't gotten blown over? So I'm trying to think of, and of course they don't want to listen to me. I mean, when did you ever tell your parents like, good pull?
Fuck yourself. Yeah. All they're thinking the whole time is, I'm going to let her keep talking, but Jesus, my whole life. Yeah. I really can't recommend it. Maybe we'll do it. So Alex's Lemonade Stand, again, one of my favorite organizations. They're based out of Philly. They always have a time of the year called lemonade days. And you can have lemonade stands all year, but this is when they kind of make a concerted effort. Maybe we'll do something around there because my kids and I have been dying to bring it back here. And you can get, gear for your lemonade stand, branded cups, all that kind of stuff. It's really fun. And again, we can have a totally separate 4-hour podcast about this. But probably on most days of the week, my argument why there isn't a God is kids' cancer. And if you're doing it out of anger because it shouldn't exist, or empathy, or whatever it might be, or, hey, I hope my kids fucking never need this someday, it's also just super. Who doesn't love a lemonade stand? Also, you get to make people feel like shit when they just drive by and they don't offer money. It's fun. Your kids get to get involved. It's great.
We had this an administrator at our kids' last school who certainly pushed the boundaries for any of the parents of making you wonder what is useful woke versus what is performative woke. And I'll just leave it at that. But I do remember there was a day last year where she very proudly had the kids leave class and go stand outside on the very busy street because it was like the day against hate, I believe. So you could go, the children would stand outside and like wave to cars and hold peace signs. And what number one anecdote the kids came rushing home so excited to tell us from that day was not about all the peace they had spread or what they had learned about peace, but was the old bitch who gave them a middle finger driving down the street. They were so amped. That was so exciting. And I was like, that's what happens when you try to make it about yourself and, put it on the Instagram. So the kids learned a valuable lesson that day, which is driving by, giving someone the bird is pretty fucking fun.
That's it for this week.
You're gonna make it. You're doing great. Or you're just doing it. Or just you, period.
Just stop right there. But for more, you can hit subscribe right in your podcast player of choice.
Please share our show with another parent in your life or anyone who might get a kick out of listening to what the hell we're going through.
And if you have literally 3 seconds, just push your thumb against the 5-star review button wherever you might be listening.
But no pressure, honestly. We know you're busy.
Head to notrightnow.show for more, or send us feedback, questions, horror stories, doxing, whatever it is, at questions@notrightnow.show.